Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports, coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C. And them good old boys down south, I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond, in London, England, as well as Paris, France. Of course, you good old boys in Canada. We love you in Africa, the Big C tribe. But there's no one we love more than the good old boys down south in the land of the free and the home of the brave on a beautiful February the 13th, 2020. Ground of the Portes, Big C. How's it going for you good old boys down south?
Well, Charlton, I'm trying to get in a call to our administration in Washington, D.C. that says there's no such thing as global warming.
Yeah.
We had weather up in the 70s today, and it's already dipped down into the 30s for the evening.
Yeah, it's amazing the way, I guess, Mother Nature has her own clue in how she decides to run the universe. Why do we call it Mother Nature? Isn't that a clue that it's time for a woman president, Big C? It's all fair, love, and war. I want to say today's show is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go by and test drive yours, tell them Charlton and Big C sent you, as well as a fleet of Cadillac cars. Big C Sports is powered by Google and Alexa. Just say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You will hear from our sponsors. You are here. Welcome to the show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic, and he will do his thing. And I really appreciate the way things are growing with Big C Sports Podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity, Comcast TV, Roku TV, Apple TV, Fire TV, and a lot of smart TVs all over the universe. I really appreciate the way things are happening in the world of Big C Sports. So did you say you're blaming Mother Nature, or you're blaming the White House for this fickle weather, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, somebody's got to be to blame. I know Mother Nature won't take a call if she doesn't have press conference, so
Yeah.
you got to blame somebody else. But I mean, it's cold down here. I guess winter has came back with his grip on us.
Yeah, it's funny, but what happens if Mother Nature doesn't get flowers for Valentine's Day, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, at this cold weather it is, Charlton, she may not be getting flowers because they're all going to be frozen up.
That's a funny thing. All that chocolate, Mother Nature loves chocolate, Big C. All life did start on the African continent. I do want to say we want to salute our military veterans. We do have a Veterans Crisis Hotline, and if you call it, they have people who are experienced in helping veterans and their loved ones, Big C. They can call 800-273-8255. That's 800-273-8255, or you can text 838-255. That's 838-255. If you are online, simply go to veteranscrisisline.net. That's veteranscrisisline.net and get some help. Big C, why is that so important to you?
Well, Charlton, as Valentine's Day rapidly approaches, it's time for all Americans to open up their hearts to our great military veterans who have served this country throughout our 5 armed forces that we have, Charlton, representing the country. When our veterans return home, they need more than just a thank you. They need some consideration from the American public and the American government, ways to help them out mentally, physically, socially, Charlton. And many of these veterans suffer different types of crises, and unfortunately it has led to suicide amongst many veterans, Charlton. Some 19 a day have committed suicide in this country, as well as our private citizens, Charlton. Our youth are committing suicide at a horrendous rate also. People think of it as an embarrassment, but it is a disease that needs to be addressed, and it needs to be addressed openly. You can't let it live in the shadows. You have to make it the public spotlight, Charlton, where people pay attention to it and not hide from what this disease is. And our National Suicide Prevention Hotline number is one of those ways, Charlton, that people can call and get help for those who are in need, who are struggling emotionally, mentally, and physically, Charlton. And they're not judged. It's a lot of people in society want to judge people. You can't judge people who are struggling emotionally.
Yep, that's very true. That's why we love being a part of the solution, Big C. 800-273-8255. That's 800-273-8255. Or you can text 838-255. That's 838-255. If you're online, just go to veteranscrisisline.net. That's veteranscrisisline.net, and you can get some help if you are a military veteran. And they also know how to help family members too, Big C. I also want to just acknowledge that e-commerce is coming. I mean, it's already here. Big C, the real estate team, will be launching a TV channel in the spring of 2020. The goal is simply to recruit 100 real estate brokers to put their property listings on TV. I was talking with some brokers today, and they were saying, well, how can you get a TV channel? Sometimes it's just who you know, but really looking forward to that and looking to recruit brokers to list their properties on TV. If you are a homeowner and you're looking to list your property, are you more likely to give that listing to an agent that can put you on TV or someone who's only going to send out flyers? Big C, that make any sense? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, it all depends on the reach that an individual is looking for and the type of market that they're trying to attract.
Yeah, it makes so much sense to have an investor friend in San Francisco that still finds enough good deals to flip properties. I said, man, you must have a big bank account to flip properties, but a lot of people just put their money together and get things done that way. So launching real estate TV channel in spring of 2020. Again, the goal is to recruit 100 real estate brokers and send that money our way, Big C. We got to create our own stock market like they had back in the day. You know, I know so much happens in the world of sports. Last night, I was watching, some basketball, and I really think as we look at what goes on in the world of basketball, I know we're coming up on the All-Star break. We have Team Giannis versus Team LeBron James, and everybody has their own, flavor, their desire to see what team wins. I still really appreciate how many athletes and teams are paying homage to the late Kobe Bryant, that Mamba mentality. Life must go on, but there's still a lot of good old boys that are doing it the right way. And what I saw last night in Denver, Mile High City, Big C, the LA Lakers, it is not the first time they've had success. 17 straight road wins versus intra-conference opponents. That's the longest streak since the 1970-1971 season, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, I mean, it's about playing well throughout the season, but it's how well you play during the playoffs. I mean, it's been a 6-year hiatus since the Lakers have been in the playoffs. So, I mean, with the free agent moves that they made in the offseason, they're showing that they're paying off.
Yeah, it shows that it's paying off. I know you and I have had our differences on, who has better barbecue. I told you my good old boy that I met the other day with 1,100 cattle from Texas, Big C. He said, I don't like California steak. I said, California steak? I said, what kind of steak? How do you know where the steak came from? He said, California steak tastes too sweet. He said it's too sweet, Big C. He likes a steak where you don't have any type of sweeteners added to it. Them good old boys in Texas. Can you tell the difference in steak, Big C, where it came from? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, it's about how you feed the cattle. I know a lot of feedlots will feed them corn and onions and various things other than just natural hay.
Yeah, well, last night, the Lakers were feeding the basket by driving to the paint, whether it was LeBron James or Davis. Them two good old boys, they really know how to play. And I just love seeing big guys that can stop outside the three-point arc and they can shoot the basket in. We know they can do that. I saw Jokic panic last night for the first time really in about a year. He could have taken the basket inside of the paint, and he kicked it out to the outside, and it got stolen, and the Lakers went on and won that game. But when you have Davis and LeBron, I know the way the good old boys in Texas love steak. If you love winning championships, and this is why I think Houston's going to have a problem, you don't have anyone that can really drive the basket and get a rebound over a 7-footer. When I look at Boogie Cousins, if he comes back 7 feet tall, you also have Davis right around 6'11", and then you just have LeBron, who's not 7 feet tall, but he plays like it. It's going to be hard to beat them if they realize they'll make their money going to the paint and not settling for threes. That make any sense, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, it's been a long time in the NBA since you've seen a team of length win a championship.
Yeah.
You have to look back some years since you saw a team with some 7-footers on there, Charlton, dominating the paint, winning the game. This game has changed a lot over the last decade where it's become an outside game.
Yeah.
It's about streak shooting. I mean, you can trade baskets, but if you got a team knocking down 3-point shots versus a team knocking down 2-point shots, and you're shooting basically at the same clip from the floor, Charlton, that team is knocking down the 3-point shots is generally going to win those championships. Ask the Golden State Warriors.
Yeah, Coach Pop, when he lost the great Tim Duncan to retirement, he had that 7-footer down inside. Before that, there was the Admiral David Robinson. But they did win 5 NBA championships, Big C, under his tutelage in the last 20 years by having some big men down in the paint, because every now and then when the legs get tired, then the shots don't fall. I was looking at what happened last night with our good old friends from old Canada, our home and native land. And I mean, I think I can sing, but maybe not as good enough as some of them other good old girls that do their national anthems. They lost for the first time in 30 days, and of all places, they lost it in Brooklyn, Big C. They couldn't have waited until they got back home to lose, but they lost it on the road. And to hear the players talk, they just said, man, I'm exhausted. They were exhausted from winning. You ever hear of that before, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, I mean, the season is long. I mean, and to go on a 15-game tirade where you're knocking off opponents left and right. One of the advantages they had, Kyrie Irving wasn't in the lineup for Brooklyn. Brooklyn has been a much better team without Kyrie Irving in the lineup. And when you look at the loss, I mean, the top two teams in the Eastern Conference lost last night.
Yeah.
And which one of those would have been the most devastating when you think about Toronto having their 15-game win streak snapped against the Brooklyn Nets, Charlton, and then you also look at the number one team, the Milwaukee Bucks, having their streak snapped. They had a 7-game streak snapped against the Indianapolis Pacers. And I think the game against Indianapolis was more of a devastating loss to Milwaukee. For Milwaukee than the Toronto's 15-game losing streak to Indianapolis, the Nets. Because when you look at where Indianapolis is, they're the number 5 seed in the East. This is a team that Milwaukee potentially will have to face in the playoffs. And I know they were without Giannis last night because he's still at home attending to the birth of his first child. But this gives the Indianapolis Pacers all type of momentum and confidence in facing the Milwaukee Bucks, saying, we can beat this team. They're not invincible. And so this is what you don't want to give somebody an opportunity. You go back to football when the Houston Texans could have eliminated the Tennessee Titans from the football playoffs. And we saw how deep their run was all the way to the AFC Championship game against the Kansas City Chiefs, and even had the lead in that game, Charlton. So when you have an opponent and you give them life and confidence, when you get to the playoffs, they can be the toughest out that you're going to face.
And I saw that same type of thing last night in Denver where they had a lead over the Lakers, and then the Lakers realized they get their honey's meant from going into the paint. The three-point basket's sexy, but they started going inside, and that's how they got the lead. Tonight's a much lighter schedule, but it may be a prelude to the NBA Finals, Big C. The L.A. Clippers across the country playing at Boston. The Celtics got whipped up on pretty good by Houston. That small ball really worked on them. And when you make that statement that you can win now, but can you do it in the playoffs? This is the Clippers playoff team. This is a playoff game, in my opinion. I know a lot of players want to do some load management and resting players and then have that all-star weekend, which is the 3-day weekend. So they're really not getting rest there. There's a lot of other festivities going on. But it's big for the Clippers to get a win at Boston. Or is it, in your opinion, because I would think, in my opinion, NBA basketball is West Coast dominant, at least Western Conference dominant. A win means more to who, Boston or the Clippers, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, the Clippers desperately need to win more than Boston. Boston is not going to win the East. There are 3 teams in the Eastern Conference that are way better than the Boston Celtics and will go a lot deeper in the playoffs. The Clippers are, they have to knock off the Lakers out west, and we don't know who the best team in L.A. is because head-to-head, the Clippers have the upper hand on that battle. So I know this is a team that the Lakers really don't want to see in the playoffs, and that's the Clippers. And the Clippers even got better during the trade deadline.
Oh, yeah.
So what the Lakers have right now during the regular season, it looks great. But when they play the Clippers, they 0-2 against the Clippers this year.
Yeah, and both of those games have been in L.A. No pun intended. They both share the same home floor. So I wish some great basketball, especially coming into the All-Star break, Big C. The OKC Thunder, I think they're surprising a lot of people with Chris Paul, the way he plays. They're at the New Orleans Pelicans. They're really trying to build this around Zion. I think he had a fabulous game, his last out. But I would love to see him. I mean, you can't tell someone to play a little bit, with less. I guess he's so much passion, even when he goes in for a dunk, like the great Dominique Wilkins back in the day, or was it Dawkins that used to tear the rim down. I don't want to see him tear down the rim. I think they built him too strong for that now. But I would love to see him develop maybe some outside game too. I know he had a couple of nice shots at three-point baskets too, but he's dominant inside. If they can do that and he learns an outside game, he's going to be the real deal. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, in his first game out, Charlton, he knocked down a couple three-point shots.
Yeah.
But since that game, he's been 0 for 6 from three-point range, so he knows that's not his game in the NBA, is to try to live beyond the arc. His game is a mid-range game, playing within the paint, playing within himself.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that a lot of players will do when they come into the NBA is they try to change up the dynamics that got them there. Zion wasn't even a three-point shooter in college. He played around the paint. He was a highlight player.
Yeah.
And that's where his bread and butter is in the NBA. He has to use his physicality to keep his game going strong. And as long as he stays around the paint, he will be a solid player. If he tries to take it to the outside, Charlton, he will lose what got him to the NBA.
Big C, would you at all equate him to, remember how maybe he's a lot thicker than Karl Malone? I remember when Karl Malone came out of Louisiana Tech, he was a little bit lighter in scale, and then he started lifting weights, obviously. But he had that strong inside game where he would always kick guys to get that extra angle on the basket. Would you equate his game at all to the great Karl Malone? He was not a three-point shooter, but inside the paint, my goodness, he was amazing. Big C, your thoughts?
No, he's nowhere near Karl Malone. Karl Malone was a 6'10 phenom. I mean, he was a great scorer when he was at Louisiana Tech. He came into the NBA as a scorer, and he left the NBA as the number 2 all-time leading scorer in league's history. So when I look at those two games, they're quite different. I mean, I look at him more of a Charles Barkley ram with the body style that he has, and Anthony Mason, Charles Oakley.
Yeah.
He's built much like those players, or Rick Mahorn. Those are the type of players that he reminds me of. Those were inside players that use their physical power to stay around the rim.
Yeah, I think those are great analysis, Big C. When I look at a guy, in fact, when you look at the city of New Orleans, they've had Anthony Davis. They've seen a guy who had a lot of hype, maybe not as much as Zion Williamson, but as far as an NBA impact player, I would say Davis will have the more impact because he can shoot threes. He can go inside the paint. He's also a pretty good passer. His defensive skills are pretty solid. So I think even though Zion has more buzz, that Davis was the better overall player, but he wanted out of there. Would you make that same assessment, or would you disagree, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Davis never won when he was in New Orleans, so he never proved that he was a better player in New Orleans. I mean, he had to go and surround himself with better talent to be the player that he is, but he's never carried a franchise. Zion right now has the ability to carry a franchise.
Yeah, well, I look forward to seeing this young man's growth. I really hope that he can just stay healthy, and I feel a little bit cheated with the NBA All-Star game. I know Mother Nature has his own way of making us realize reality, Big C, and you have, what's his name, Dollar Dame. He'll have more time to practice on his rap music. Damian Lillard had a little hitch in his giddy-up last night. Hopefully it's not going to keep him out too long. But here's a player that always plays hard. People always talk about how hard Russell Westbrook plays. But I think Damian Lillard is the same breed of character, Big C. I hate seeing the good ones go down with an injury, but it happens, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, I mean, injuries are part of any professional sport. Damian Lillard pulled a groin last night. Going to keep him out at least a week. But, you know, with the recovery process in NBA and medical staff, they'll get him back as quick as possible into the lineup. Yeah,
they will get him back. So we look forward to that. And, of course, we have the NBA All-Star Game coming up over the weekend in the beautiful city, the beautiful windy city of Chicago, Big C. I want to swing it out to where Mother Nature loves Southern California. We have the Genesis Open, the invitation, the great Tiger Woods going for his 83rd win. I thought he was going to get it because earlier in the day he was in second place, and now he's still not that far behind. He's tied for 16th, but the leaderboard right now has him right on 16th. He's only -2 on the day, and that's not very good when you were up at number 2. Matt Kuchar is -7 on the day, so he has a 5-shot lead over Tiger Woods. And then you have Lee -4, Henley -4. There's a lot of guys on the leaderboard too, but it should be nice coming into the weekend. McIlroy, he's tied for 7th at -3, and Cantley's -3 as well. Jason Day is -3. DeChambeau is -3. There's a lot of things that will happen. I just want to see some good golf going into the weekend, even though I will most likely be watching the NBA All-Star Game. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, I mean, golf is one of those fickle things. It's about who's hot. I mean, the weekend is where your money is made. You know, Tiger has to be more consistent. He started out today leading the tournament because he shot an eagle on a par 5 on the first hole. So he started out automatically 2 strokes under and didn't get any better from there, really.
Yeah, it's just about staying focused, and sometimes you feel like maybe he doesn't want to win as much as I pull, especially for men of color dominating the world of sports, and I'm sure he'll do okay whether he wins this tournament or not. It's all part of just the golf game. I want to just bring your attention to something else in the world that we were just talking about it yesterday, and I think, of course, people go where the money is. We did the show on, you were asking me why, the Pac-12 has lost some coaches, and sometimes players may go to different parts of the country. I think maybe those schools get a lot of publicity. There's no disputing that a lot of kids from all the states, they go different states too. It just to be a lot of them go down to the South. But when you think about the talk, and I heard more of it about people disagreeing with coaches leaving Colorado for Michigan State, or when Saban left the Miami Dolphins to come to Alabama, or when Pete Carroll left USC to go to the Seattle Seahawks. Everybody leaves because of money. And I just want to get your opinion. Is there anything where we should have this loyalty? College football coaches can no longer question the players' loyalty, saying that athletes have to fulfill their contracts, that they signed a 4-year contract when they're recruited, but coaches will take a $5.4 million a year contract in the blink of an eye, Big C, in a millisecond. So coaches, please stop lecturing about where the loyalty is and that you love your university, you love your players. Just say it's all about the money, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, it's been proven that it's all about the money, Charlton, because coaches are leaving in a heartbeat. I mean, you've seen 3 Pac-12 coaches leave this past season. 2 of them went eastward, Charlton, to bigger opportunities. One went to Arkansas, one went to East Lansing, Michigan. So when you think about the exodus of coaches leaving universities all the time, I think at the end of the season there were some 22 major college openings that were open, Charlton, and they were filled by college coaches leaving other colleges. They didn't go to high school and recruit high school coaches and say, come be our head coach. They didn't go to the NFL and get coordinators and say, come be our head coaches. They went and robbed a coach from another university.
Yeah.
They said, we're going to pay you more money if you come here and coach our kids.
Yeah.
And so we want you to leave the ones behind that you recruited, that you told you were going to invest 4 years in them, and you were going to be there to see them graduate.
Yeah.
But you left on the first train smoking out of town as soon as they gave you a bigger paycheck.
Yeah.
And this has been a fight from universities over the years against college athletes.
Yeah.
I know back when I was in college, Charlton, if a player wanted to transfer and play right away, they had to leave Division I and go down to Division I AA or Division III to be eligible to play right away. Otherwise, they had to sit out if they went to a Division I school. They had to sit out a year.
Yeah.
And now with this new transfer portal, they're making players eligible right away. I think that players, when a coach leaves a university, any of those players on that roster has the autonomy to leave that same day that that coach has, without any drawback, without having to sit out, without having to sit there and put in a request for immediate eligibility.
Yeah.
He should automatically be granted that by the NCAA. If the players can't do that, why don't they make those coaches being eligible for a year to coach, that he can only go to practice, but he can't coach in the games for an entire year? Treat him just like you treat the players.
Yeah, well, we know that's not going to happen, Big C, because the people who have the money make all the rules. I want to juxtapose what we're talking about in the world of college competition to grown men. And it goes back to this, Tiger Woods, the PGA golfer, the phenomenon. He's seeking his 83rd major win in the Genesis Invitational. That was actually first played 94 years ago, back in 1926. It was then called the Los Angeles Open. Well, Tiger's been, built up because he won, and then he was torn down because he sent out too many Valentine's gifts, Big C, if you understand what I'm saying. And good old boys didn't like that. He was getting women that they had to pay for or couldn't get, and that's just real talk. And so they try to slam him in the media. But think about this. That same PGA Association that wanted to put Tiger, under the rug, if that makes any sense, there's this new conversation that the Premier League has contacted Tiger Woods. And, if you get Tiger Woods, that's where all the money is going to follow. That's where all the TV will follow. Tiger Woods actually commented on that. He's still a cash cow, the former world number one, and he's been approached by organizers of the Premier Golf League and proposed a competition to rival the PGA Tour. I don't think the good old boys in golf would ever let it happen. It would probably be Tiger Woods scandal part 2, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, no, Charlton, I mean, if you put money forth, people will follow.
Yeah.
And if there's a new league that wants to compete, just like the XFL coming up, saying we want to compete against the NFL, as the AF came up and said we want to compete against the NFL, but not directly. If you bring up any type of golf organization, golf is played worldwide year-round.
Yeah.
It's not just played here in the U.S. So there's more professional leagues than just the PGA. It's just what the U.S. recognizes. So if another organization wants to come up and develop and put the money forth and you have the sponsorship, it's all about television viewership.
Yeah.
And if you can get the biggest names in golf to come over and play on your side outside the PGA, you're going to get a following. The PGA does not have, collusion on golf in the world. It's just one association.
Yeah.
And so if another organization want to bring in Tiger Woods, and if Tiger Woods is willing to be competitive and play enough, you just can't have him playing every other tournament, every 4 tournaments. He has to play every time you have a tournament on television. That would make the league successful.
Yeah, I think that would make it successful. And think about this. The Grand Prix style 18-event World Tour, would feature 48 of the top players and have a $240 million total, prize fund. So a lot of guys would do it. Tiger said his team's aware of it, and he's looked at the details of it. But think about this, Big C. We just talked about players in college wanting to go from one school to another, and they get a lot of pushback. The coaches can do it all the time. PGA Tour Commissioner Jay Monahan, he told players that they would have to choose between the new series or the PGA Tour, while the European Tour, the chief executive Kelly Pelly, also issued a warning to those on that tour. So they're being warned, even though it's not an oligarchy of power. They have a way of getting at you the same way they brought down Tiger last time. If you know what I'm saying, it makes sense. They're still threatening. You can't go out and compete against us, even though he can. But I don't trust shenanigans that make any sense. Your thoughts?
Well, it's not about Tiger if this new league formed, Jonathan. Tiger would just be one of the players. You talked about them soliciting the top 48 players in the world. That's what they're going to go after, because that's what you got to have. That's what the PGA consists of, is the top 50 players in the world being able to play these multiple events. You look at all professional sports. There's not open free agency in the NFL. There's not open free agency in the NBA. There's not open free agency in Major League Baseball or hockey. So to say that you can have open free agency in any professional league, Charlton, I think is an asinine thing to even look at. So you have to make a commitment where you want to be. When the USFL came around several decades ago, Charlton, to compete against the NFL, you had to make a decision. Do you want to play in the USFL or do you want to play in the NFL? Many players jumped ship, just like in the World Football League back in the early 70s, when a lot of players left the NFL because the money wasn't that great. And they went and played in the World Football League, as well as in the USFL when it came around. They could equal the NFL money-wise. And so a lot of players left the NFL and went and played in the USFL. And not many people remember, Charlton, back in the early and mid-'70s, the money in Canada was better than the money in the NFL. So many players from that left the college ranks went up and played in the Canadian Football League. As a matter of fact, in 1979, I believe it was, 4 of the top 30 draft picks in the NFL went to Canada and signed up there to play instead of playing in the NFL because they could get more money. And the number 1 overall pick in the NFL draft, Tom Cousineau, was the first one to go. First time the NFL had lost the number 1 overall draft pick.
It's all about the money. People will go where the money is because money rules the world. Even billionaires, they want their shot at money too. So I think they're talking about this British-based World Golf Group last month. They unveiled plans for the Premier Golf League, and it hopes to launch in 2020. And with $240 million on the line, somebody's going to cross that picket line. Big C, we might be crossing that line before they do. $240 million. We're going to take what's called the Big C timeout, also known as the Big C pause. And when we come back, we're going to talk more about the world of sports and $240 million. We'll be back in just a moment. All right, we are back from the Big C Timeout, also known as the Big C Pause, and you can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the #1 podcast network in the universe, iHeartRadio Podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Spreaker.com. And there's an app that I love called Google. And Alexa, just say Google. Or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You will hear from our sponsors. You will hear Welcome to the Show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic, and he will do his thing. And I really appreciate the way things are growing with Big C Sports Podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity, Comcast TV, Roku TV, Apple TV, Fire TV, and a lot of smart TVs all over the universe. Really appreciate the growth of Big C Sports. Also launching in the spring of 2020, a real estate listing channel where all the top brokers in the universe, depending on the market that we're in, you can list your real estate properties on television. I know you can get the good old boys, the newbies, to go out and door knock and ask people if they know anyone who wants to list or sell their property, and there's nothing wrong with that. You can also put ads in the paper. Nothing wrong with that either. You can send flyers to the neighborhood around the properties you want to sell. Nothing wrong with that. But if you're a real estate broker and you want to tell your client that you can put their listing on television, you got to wait out for the Big C Real Estate TV channel that's going to be launching here in the spring of 2020. Big C, sometimes you got to see things before they believe. But I guess faith says you got to see things before you got to believe in things before you see them. Well, in the NFL, I think this is true. Quarterback Jameis Winston, I always said he could become a top NFL player. He underwent LASIK surgery, and I guess it corrects nearsightedness. I've even seen people who've had that LASIK surgery. They still have to have some glasses, so I don't know if it's all real or not. But he threw for 5,109 yards, 33 touchdowns, and 30 interceptions in the 2019 season. And that's with one good eye, Big C. Imagine if he had two good eyes, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, now he has 30-30 vision when you realistically look at it. Jameis Winston underwent the LASIK surgery for nearsightedness. This is a guy who could not even see the scoreboard, as he said. And if you ever noticed him on the sideline, he did a lot of squinting. So,
yeah.
Maybe this will clear him up, Charlton, as far as seeing only his receivers, and the depth that they've run in a route, and hopefully it will help prolong his career.
Now, I know when you play, you poked a lot of guys in the eye. I don't know if they had LASIK surgery back in the day, Big Z, but they managed to play with one eye open. And just think about a guy, in all seriousness. I remember when I was playing football as a young boy, and I was back to return a kickoff, and I saw two balls coming. So I grabbed the wrong one, and I admit I could not see that well, but I didn't want people to think, oh, you need glasses? Because I was naive, and sometimes high school people make fun of you. But I remember when I started wearing glasses and contacts, it really happened because of a football injury. It wasn't an injury, it was an embarrassment. Returning the kick, I saw two footballs. I grabbed the wrong one, and we had a turnover. From there, I went and got reality, and I got my eyes fixed, Big C. I do believe that Winston, I've always said that he's one of the most, I think, impressive talents that I've seen. A guy that can't even see can throw for over 5,000 yards. In the NFL, I know many people say get rid of him. If you're Coach Arians, I do believe this can turn his career around. I don't think it's a joke at all. I would hope to see that they give him another chance down in Tampa, even though he may find better success if he did come to the West Coast and maybe play for the Chargers. We have an all-pro style running back, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, I don't know if he's a fit for the Chargers. I mean, everybody is calling in the media for the Chargers to go out and sign a free agent quarterback. I think the Chargers already have their quarterback on roster. You think about it. They have a quarterback on roster who has a Super Bowl ring in Tyrod Taylor. Tyrod Taylor has been a starter in the NFL with a couple different franchises. He picked up a Super Bowl ring in 2013 when he was a member of the Ravens, but he's also got the Buffalo Bills to the playoffs for the first time in a decade when he got him there 2 years ago prior to Josh Allen getting him there, and they felt that he wasn't the quarterback they wanted to move forward with, even though he was 9-7.
Yeah.
And he's gone to the Chargers. He sit there. He's learned the Chargers system. Not only that, the Chargers head coach, Anthony Lynn, was Tyrod Taylor's offensive coordinator when he was in Buffalo.
Yeah.
So these two gentlemen know each other very well. That's the reason why Tyrod Taylor is on the roster with the Chargers, because of the confidence that Lynn had in him, getting him to the playoffs when he was an offensive coordinator. And now that he's a head coach, he knows that Tyrod Taylor still possesses that same ability. And when you look at the setting of the quarterbacks now in the NFL, when you're talking about being highly mobile, being able to buy time in the pocket and get outside the pocket, Tyrod Taylor fits that mold. He has NFL experience. It's going to be a short curve for him once he gets on the field. And when you look at the talent in San Diego, they don't need to look at Tom Brady. They don't need to look at Jameis Winston or any other quarterback. They have a quarterback on the roster with championship pedigree. Why do you need to look elsewhere?
And I don't disagree at all. However, you look at Winston, he could come up on $100+ million contract. They're talking about $27 million guarantee. But I don't think Tyrod Taylor's ever thrown for 5,000 yards in any of his seasons, Big C. Now, I may be wrong with that, but this is just my push for Jameis Winston because I followed him since he came out of Florida State. If you correct the incompletions and the interceptions, it would not be too much of a stretch to say that you have a quarterback that can throw for 6,000 yards. Maybe that's not realistic, maybe 5,500. But clearly with better eyesight, no matter what team he's on, you got a 5,000-yard passer. You don't have that in Tyrod Taylor, Big C. Your thoughts?
Yeah, but there's never been a 5,000-yard passer to win a Super Bowl. So 5,000 yards does not win you a Super Bowl. You need a quarterback that is competent in winning. And if you look at Tyrod Taylor as a starting quarterback in the NFL, Jameis Winston has never won more games in a single season than Tyrod Taylor. So I'm going to take the guy with the most wins in a single season. Plus, he also has Super Bowl experience, Charlton. He knows what it's like to be a winner in the NFL, and that is the key. And he doesn't have the off-the-field issues that Jameis Winston potentially can bring to your organization. So Tyrod Taylor would be the guy that I would fly with.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of good players that are always, question mark. Do we sign them? Do we franchise tag them? Everybody has their own opinion. But I want to get Big C's thoughts on the NFL's most secure situation at quarterback. If Tom Brady's not secure, Big C, nobody's secure. Imagine him on his interview. Tom, what makes you think you can help our organization? And he holds up two hands, and he got 6 rings to show, Big C, even though he never played a down of defense, except he did try to tackle a couple of guys that when he threw an interception to them. But I want to just start and get your opinion. Last couple of years, we talked about Baker Mayfield, even when he came out of Oklahoma. I remember his performance in the Rose Bowl where they got beaten by Georgia. They had a lead, and then Georgia came back and beat him. I know people loved him until this last couple of seasons. He just talks too much, and if he would let his play do the talking, maybe he would be more coachable. But do you think he has job security? Big C, Baker Mayfield, your thoughts?
Oh, he has 100% job security in Cleveland. The problem is management in that organization. They haven't had leadership. I mean, you had Freddie Kitchens last year with the turnover that you looked at. Baker Mayfield is now on his third head coach in his third NFL season. So it's going to take some while to settle down. I mean, you can't keep changing head coaches and expect the whole team to develop behind that.
Yeah, you look at his rookie campaign in 2018, Mayfield led the Browns to 6 wins over 13 starts to go along. He completed 64% pass completion and 3,725 yards, along with 27 touchdowns and 14 picks. And his completion percentage now is like 60%, touchdowns of 22, so it decreased. And obviously they just had so much turmoil around that organization. We know that they've got, some issues to work on there in Cleveland. I think they'll get that righted in the next couple of years. I would say Kyler Murray for the Arizona Cardinals. You think about him, the Offensive Rookie of the Year in the 2019 season for the Arizona Cardinals. I feel this kid has such a high mountain to climb, and he's probably going to climb it, the number 1 overall pick. He completed 65% of his passes, 3,722 yards. He had 20 touchdowns and 12 interceptions in 2019. He also ran for 544 yards, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, this is a guy that's developing. He's part of the new age of quarterbacks in the NFL, guys who can throw and use their legs at the same time. So as you look at Kyler Murray's growth, he did an exponential job as a rookie, being Rookie of the Year. They need to get him some more help, as they always talk about with the white quarterbacks. He needs some better linemen, offensively and defensively on the Cardinals.
That's so funny because depending on what color you are, you either have a high quarterback IQ or he needs help with the offensive lineman. I think people can read between the lines. San Francisco 49ers, the runner-up to Super Bowl 54, Jimmy Garoppolo. I think a lot of people have just been riding him really hard, like get out of town, because they paid attention to the second half of the Super Bowl, particularly the fourth quarter, where I think he only had 3 completions in 11. That deep bomb to Emmanuel Sanders in Super Bowl 54, had he been more accurate and not thrown the ball with his eyes closed, Big C, maybe the 49ers would have won that game. He's only 28 years old, and when you think about the 49ers, they got to the game, they got to the big game because of that dynamic backfield. They run the ball, they run the ball, they run the ball, and Coach Shanahan said, no, let's pass the ball more in the Super Bowl. It was working in the first half, but not the second. Does he have job security, or is he really on the chopping block, Big C? Your thoughts?
I think he has more job security than Kyle Shanahan does. Kyle Shanahan is the coach who has choked in 2 Super Bowls, not Jimmy Garoppolo.
Yeah.
Jimmy Garoppolo has 2 Super Bowl rings. Kyle Shanahan's lost 2 Super Bowls.
That's very well said, but they did extend, Shanahan's deal, but we'll see what happens. People can always change their mind. And it's almost embarrassing to ask if Dak Prescott has job security down from the great state of Texas, like my friend that has 1,100 cattle from Texas also. Them good old boys are treating him like he's cattle at times, Big C. Think about Dak Prescott. This young man, still a young man, Prescott, he had a great 2019. He completed 65% of his passes last season, 4,902 yards. Had a lot of dropped passes because the receivers let them down. Sometimes Amari Cooper even didn't show up in games, Big C, especially the game in Newark in New England. He could have easily been over 5,000 yards passing. He also had 30 touchdown passes, only 11 interceptions. The Cowboys, it's amazing that he's the reason that they've had success since he's been there, but they value him less than it seems anyone who's helped them win, Big C. Your thoughts?
Does Dak Prescott have job security? Dak Prescott won't even have a job in little less than a month. He'll be a free agent, so he doesn't have a job technically now. He's in the hunt for a contract, so you can't have job security when you don't have a contract.
Yeah, that's very well said. And it's a shame because all the man has done is win, especially when you look at some of his counterparts who don't even have a playoff win. I also want to go to another player and get your thoughts. Maybe his league rival, Philadelphia's own Carson, no playoff wins, Wentz, Big C. The case is to be made that he's one of the more, quarterbacks that's kind of an enigma. They put a lot of media hype into Carson Wentz when he came out of North Dakota State, and they always want to build him up as the next, Ron Jaworski or whoever, maybe a Donovan McNabb because they have the same kind of running styles. His play this last season, his career high was 4,039 yards passing. He only threw 7 interceptions to go along with 27 passing touchdowns. But he, a lot like your friend Stafford in Detroit, no playoff wins as a starter, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, he has job security for the next 3 years. He has this thing on his contract called guaranteed money. And the Eagles would take a tremendous cap hit if they tried to move him. So he's going to be in Philadelphia for the duration.
If you think about Green Bay Packers, they have this guy by the name of Aaron Rodgers, Big C. So many people are saying they want Aaron to have the ball in the last 2 minutes so he can help them win. But if he's that legit, you're not behind in the last 2 minutes. He signed for 4 more seasons, still played at a pretty high level in 2019. Green Bay Packers went 13-3. He completed 62% of his throws. That's 3% less than Dak Prescott. Think about that. 3% less than Dak Prescott. He's a prodigal quarterback, and Dak may have to go find another place to play football because Jerry Jones doesn't like guys that win. And so just over 4,000 yards was the good old boy Rodgers. That's about 900 yards shy of what Dak Prescott threw, and 26 touchdowns is 4 less than Dak Prescott. Which one is not going to have a job in a couple of months, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, they'll both have a job. It's just about the amount of money that Dak Prescott is going to get. I think Dallas is going to franchise him. They're not going to let him move on. Aaron Rodgers will be in Green Bay. This is an organization that doesn't move on from quarterbacks. If you think of the time that Brett Favre had there while he was in Green Bay before Aaron Rodgers took over, they haven't drafted anybody or groomed anybody to take over for Aaron Rodgers. So they still think that they're going to get the 4 years out of Aaron Rodgers, and it'll be a couple more years before they spend a high-round draft pick on a quarterback.
Will you think of another good old boy down in Texas? I don't know if Deshaun Watson has 1,100 cows, but he could probably buy them if he wanted to. I think about how dynamic this guy is, especially their win over Buffalo in the playoffs where he was sandwiched by 2 guys that were blitzing him, and he spun out of the tackle. And then he was actually, in order to scramble out of the pocket and throw downfield, he was still being hit and he made the completion pass. The caveat is he get hit so many times, even when he's not running, but when he's trying to scramble around, Big C. They were up 24-0 earlier over the Kansas City Chiefs. But he didn't play defense, even though he's blamed for the reason that they didn't outscore them. You shouldn't have to outscore anyone when you have 24 points on the board. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Deshaun Watson's lack of job security comes from lack of protection from his offensive line and his head coach. Until they improve that offensive line he has down in Houston, Charlton, his career won't be as long as some quarterbacks should be.
Yeah, I think that guy has so much potential. May not find it in Houston come to fruition. Baltimore Ravens, Lamar Jackson, the NFL's unanimous MVP, could be higher of success in the laurels of NFL quarterbacks if they could just get a playoff win. But think about what he did. The man has been an amazing passer this year. He completed over 66% of his passes, which is more than Dak Prescott and more than Aaron Rodgers. He passed for 3,127 yards. He had 36 touchdowns, and he only had 6 interceptions. He has 2 more seasons on his rookie deal before picking up his 5th-year option. This kid is dynamic. He's only 23 years old, Big C. That's a lot of job security. Your thoughts?
Well, job security if he can stay healthy. We've seen running quarterbacks get beat up in the past, Charlton. And I think Lamar Jackson has to, live on the better side of valor and be more cautious about his running. I mean, it was exciting for a lot of fans to see that type of mobility.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's healthy for him in the long run. And you ask many guys who played defense in the league over the years, yes, you might give a guy a break 1 or 2 times, Charlton, but you're not going to lose your career or your opportunity for the playoffs by keeping him healthy. He's going to take some shots, and he's going to have to learn how to protect himself more.
You can watch some videos on the great Michael Vick, same kind of players, Big C, but Vick also took a little bit too much of a beating. Number 2, Russell Houdini Wilson, Seattle Seahawks. I call him Houdini because the man has made the playoffs every year of his career except for one and never had a losing season, and this man completes 66% of his passes. I feel bad for him at times because their running backs continue to get injured since Beast Mode retired and then came back out of retirement with a different team before he went back this year. He's been the running back and the quarterback and the team leader. I would love to see him be in a situation at the latter part of his career where he can really just turn the ball around and hand it off and not have to be a runner and a passer every time. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, the organization has to put more emphasis on drafting quality offensive linemen. This is something they've never done since Wilson has been in Seattle. They've played by committee on the offensive line. They've gone through free agency and some trades, but they've never really established an offensive line to protect him since he's been in Seattle, and that's been their Achilles heel.
Yeah, I just hope they can figure that out before it's too late. Don't want to see players with his stature being injured, Big C. And then number 1, I think everyone's best pick in the universe, the great Patrick Mahomes. I mean, this guy's been a player. I mean, it's amazing. First player in NFL history to win NFL MVP, a Super Bowl, and named Super Bowl MVP within his first 3 years of the league. Of course, we're going to see a lot of Patrick Mahomes in the number 1 spot. He'll be the guy that probably gets that $40 million like the movie Jerry Maguire, Show Me the Money. But another stat I like about the great Patrick Mahomes, not only does he put ketchup on his steak, Big C, but he completed an epic playoff run. He threw for 901 yards and 10 touchdowns and just 2 interceptions en route to his first Super Bowl title. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, I mean, he's become the face of the NFL. He is the best quarterback in the NFL. People like Lamar Jackson because he's a highlight reel, but Patrick Mahomes is the complete quarterback.
Yeah.
Any personnel person in the NFL say, if you were to start a franchise, who would you take? Everybody, players, and personnel in the league will say Patrick Mahomes because of what he can do.
Yeah.
I mean, he's lightning quick with his release. He also has the running ability, Charlton. But he's what the face of the NFL will be for the next decade plus.
Yeah, I really like the way that football is shaping up over the next decade, especially a lot of men of color being made multiple, $100 million contract offers. And it's great to see that they're getting the same kind of money that guys with less talent have been getting also. We like to stay down in Texas because something about that good old boy I met with 1,100 cattle, it kind of stays in my mind, Big C. I listened to the press conference today, them good old boys down in Houston, and they said, we apologize, for cheating in baseball. We wish we would have known more about it. We would have done more to stop it. But we're not giving back the World Series trophy from 2017. But there have been many dramatic on and off the field moments over the last 130 years of Major League Baseball. And when you think about the 1920s, the Black Sox scandal, and they were betting against their own team, Big C. So when people say, I can't believe that a team in 2017 cheated, it's been doing it for 130 years. In 1877, the Louisville Grays, they had a scandal also after a losing streak towards the end of the season, cost the Louisville Grays a pennant title. The 1908 bribery attempt, Chicago Cubs and the New York Giants at that time. I mean, we've even had, so many other issues, whether it's steroids or whether the bat being corked. Why do we act like the Houston did something that never been done in the history of the game, Big C? Your thoughts?
This is baseball. Baseball, every couple of decades, Dalton, you look at a huge scandal. You talked about the steroid and cork bat era in baseball during the 80s. Baseball was dying, and baseball needed an infusion. So the commissioner and everyone else turned their eye on the steroids. They knew players were using steroids. They knew players had cork bats.
Yeah.
Because the home run brought players back into the fans back into the stadium, Dalton, to see these home run derbies and matchups. So baseball does this to itself. They know what's going on at all times. To sit up and think that baseball is naive, no, it's not. It's just like I made a statement a couple of shows ago, Charlton, when you were talking about Roger Goodell, and I told you that Roger Goodell answers to 32 people.
Yeah.
He doesn't care less about the Rooney Rule. He answers to 32 guys who said what he needs to say. And that's the same thing with Rob Manfred in baseball. There's 30 people that Rob Manfred answers to, and their names are called owners of the organization. And he answers to them. So whatever comes up in baseball that people want to say is scandals or embarrassment, as long as those 30 guys sitting in the room tell Rob Manfred, we're going to let this one go, the league is going to let it go.
They're going to let it go. Going back to 1914, there was a World Series upset. It was actually a 4-game sweep. The Philadelphia Athletics at that time by the Boston Braves, and that was a 1914 World Series. It was stunning because a lot of the students that studied the game, they said the A's did not like the owner, Connie Mack, and they didn't give their best effort in a World Series because they wanted to make him mad. I don't understand who would want to lose a game to make the owner mad. Doesn't make any sense. Also 1917, 1918, in the manner in which the New York Giants lost to the Chicago White Sox in the 1917 World Series. It made a lot of people suspicious. Big C, prop betting and gambling's been around for many, many years. I think there's much ado about nothing. If you're really going to apologize, give back the World Series trophy. Don't give me these lacrimose speeches. Just do what they did to Reggie Bush. He gave back his Heisman Trophy when I don't know why he did that. Shouldn't have done that. But they could give back their trophy if they really want to show that they're remorseful. Big C, your thoughts?
And if you give back the World Series trophy, who do you give it to?
Dodgers.
You can't give it to the team that lost the series because what are you going to write on the trophy? World Series champ, is it going to be a 4-game sweep? Is it going to be 4-3 or is it 4-2? You can't rewrite the history of baseball and even professional sports the way they exist. Once you crown a champion, it is the champion. You can come back and punish the team later on, Charlton, but you can't take away something that somebody won on the field, whether it was fair or not.
Yeah, we know there's been a lot of issues, whether it's the Brooklyn Dodgers or you look at even guys like Mickey Mantle's name come up, Willie Mays. There have been several great players over the years that had to play through and become the face of the league under Commissioner Peter Ueberroth. They always tried to fix baseball. I wish they would do something about the 1980s betting. Was it Pete Rose, that scandal? Cincinnati Reds. It's always like if you have favoritism in the media, then people let you off the hook. If you don't have favoritism, Big C, then sometimes you don't get off the hook. But it's all fair in love and war. I want to say you can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the #1 podcast network in the universe, iHeartRadio Podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on my 2 favorite apps called Google and Alexa. Just say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast, and you'll hear from our sponsors. You'll hear welcome to the show. I'll thank Big C as the Mystic, and he'll do his thing, and I really appreciate the growth of Big C Sports Podcast. Big C, I want to take a quick look in the world of men's college basketball. Thursday's top 10 men's college basketball rankings, and everybody has their own opinions. There are a couple of polls out there. Gonzaga, 25-1. Baylor, is 22-1. Number 3, San Diego State is 25-0. I don't think they played the same kind of competition. Number 4, Kansas is 21-3, followed by number 5, Dayton. They're 22-2. Number 6, Maryland. They're 20-4, and they're really trying to run away with that Big Ten title. Number 7, Duke is 21-3 by the skin of their teeth. Auburn's number 8 at 22. They have 22 wins also. Number 9, Florida State, 20-4, and then Penn State is 19-5 of the Big Ten. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, when you look at that, the ACC and the Big Ten are only two teams, Charlton, only conferences that have two teams in the top 10 in the country. And as we look at the length of college basketball season as getting ready to wind up on March Madness sometime here soon, you got to try to find a clear favorite who has an opportunity to win the tournament. Even though Gonzaga and Baylor are ranked 1 and 2,
yeah,
in my mind, I think those are the top 2 favorites in the tournament.
Yeah, it's all about if the ball can go in the hole, you got a chance to win no matter what your ranking is. I also want to go across the side of the court where the women play Big C. Women's college basketball's Big C's top 10. Number 1, South Carolina. Number 2, Baylor. Number 3, Oregon. Followed by number 4, North Carolina State. Number 5, Mississippi State. Number 6, UConn, Coach Gino Auriemma. Number 7, the great Stanford Cardinal. Number 8, UCLA Bruins. Number 9, Louisville. Followed by number 10, the Maryland Terrapins. They got men and women's team ranked in the top 10 in the Big Ten. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, I think if you look at the landscape of college athletics is changing, you look at what's going on down in Waco, Texas these days, Charlton. We saw where the Baylor Bears in college football were ranked in the top 10 in the country in college football. And then you look at the men's and women's basketball teams down there in Waco, both ranked number 2 in the country. A lot of promise going on down in Waco, Texas. Not one of the biggest places in Texas, but the best athletics right now in the state of Texas are being played in Waco.
Yeah, they're doing their thing, and I'm sure they have a lot of good Texas meat too, Big C. They say California meat tastes too sweet. You can have some sweet tasting meat, hopefully for Valentine's Day, if somebody's lucky enough for someone to bring them a nice juicy steak, Big C. I want to bring up this wonderful woman's name, Monet Davis. She's on the cover of Sports Illustrated back in the day. She met President Barack Obama and was tapped as one of the top 25 most influential teenagers of 2014 by Time magazine. On Saturday, Monet Davis made her college softball pitching debut for Hampton University in Virginia. She was 1 for 3 with 2 RBIs in a 15-2 win over North Carolina A&T. Davis she drew national global attention in 2014. Big C, she became the first girl pitcher to pitch a postseason shutout against boys in the Little League World Series. Big C, your thoughts?
You know, Monique Davis took the world by storm as a 14-year-old to go out and pitch a perfect game, Charlton, in the Little League World Series in Williamsburg. And you know, as she said, she met President Obama back in 2014 after that historic date, Charlton. But, you know, she was an uplifting inspiration for many young ladies in America. As we've seen the rise of African-American young ladies in American sports, we think about the great gymnast Gabby Davis when she won the Olympics after that, Charlton, after witnessing Monique Davis. And we see what Simone Biles has done. We see what has done with Coco Gauff and Naomi Osaka, the rise of young African-American women in American sports, Charlton. And Monique Davis was one of the trailblazers of that.
Yeah, really, really love seeing when young girls get the opportunity. There's a couple of books I want to have people just pay attention to. I tell you, for me, Valentine's Day, maybe watching CNN, there's a book that I want to read. It's called All the President's Women. His must read is about POTUS and how he gets down, Big C. Also, one of my favorite politicians. He's a billionaire, and they're always calling me asking for money. Mike Bloomberg, he and Donald Trump, they're having a Twitter war because they all know a lot of the same people back in New York City. Just some things that I might be doing on Valentine's night, Big C, but it's all fair and love and war. Back in the day, there was a man by the name of Drew Boudini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man, and he would always tell Ali, with all you got to use, how can you lose? Rumble, young men, rumble. Big C, what are you looking forward to in this sports universe?
Well, Charlton, I'm going to take a look back in black history on February 13th, 1923. On this date, the first black professional basketball team was organized in the state of New York, called the Harlem Renaissance, Charlton, which later and we know them today as the Harlem Globetrotters,
Yeah.
were formed in 1923 in New York.
Well, I remember seeing the Harlem Globetrotters. They had some great players that could dribble, and you can dribble too every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. worldwide. Follow Big C Sports on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C. And them good old boys down south, as we always tell you, that's never, ever an excuse for domestic violence. If you know any man or woman going through that garbage, please pick up the phone and call 911, because no man or woman should ever have to go through that garbage on their own. And as we always tell you on every Big C Sports show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.